Welcome back to States and Kingdoms. Today we're talking about Blondie and their album Parallel Lines from 1978. Now, this is our second Blondie album?
Third.
Is it really?
But who's counting?
I was trying to.
You're not. I might be.
This is probably my favorite.
Oh,
in case you're wondering.
Well, that's an incredibly unique take. Parallel Lines, your favorite Blondie album. How special you are.
You're calling me ordinary. Is that what you're doing? Calling me a normie?
Yeah. Blondie is one of those bands that had, some really huge hits. They kind of go between certain, a few different styles, I suppose you could say. I'll just say it this way. It'll make it easier later. Without
saying the G word.
Gendarme?
Jean d'Arc. Someone turn up.
That's a J.
I know.
Anyway.
I know.
They were really a little before both of our time. I mean, their last album of the 80s was just as we were being spawned. And, so I really...
Like salmon.
So I really didn't, listen to them at all. They weren't on TV.
No.
They, you knew...
I knew Heart of Glass.
Yeah, you knew a couple of songs.
That was the song that got through to me, early, somehow.
You would hear probably 3 or 4 songs, and that was basically it.
Yeah.
Through the early 90s. And I just never listened to them. And it wasn't until I did go through a period where I was listening to a lot of the, CBGB bands, just...
Talking Heads.
No, but the Ramones, the Dead Boys, Television, I was just listening to a lot of those groups and more. I mean, more than just that. And I started listening to Blondie, and I really just loved it. Yeah. I loved everything. I mean, I enjoy all of their albums, but the first 4 are certainly...
They're really special.
Yeah, and they would appeal to someone like me.
Like me?
No, just me.
Oh. Now tell me more about how you felt about it.
This is about me. And I'm telling you how I feel. Because that's all that matters in this world. I'm the star of the show. This is my story. My story.
My story. That's good.
It's a new one. Not history, not her story. My story. My story. My story begins in 1984.
Cut it out.
Yeah, okay, anyway. The point was, I loved everything about it. It's really irresistible. It's, 50s, early 60s rock and roll.
It's got a New York, it's like a New York edge to it.
It's Roxy music.
Yeah, it's a little synthy.
It's got Velvet Underground. It's got artsiness in it. It's got a rejection of artsiness in it. Debbie Harry is absolutely one of my favorite singers. One of maybe my favorite female singer.
She might be the best front woman of a band.
She's extraordinary. I love her style. I love her voice. She's really fascinating to listen to. Like any of the great singers, really. I mean, she can put across so much. There's so many different moods.
And she
in the way she sings and
and the way she does
such expressiveness,
like a hard rocker versus like a sweet love song versus like a standard, that that there's a lot of range. Which but what she brings to it keeps all of those different things sounding cohesive.
In my opinion, makes her a real perfect rock and roll singer, because to be able to do all these rock and roll songs, to do ballads, to do more, hard rocking, we'll say, because they're not hard rock.
Yeah, she can growl.
Yeah, more punky things. Yeah. Just more aggressive, gentle, graceful. To do a Lerner and Lowe song, and
super
all
dynamic.
on one album, which is not this album.
Yeah, we're talking about other albums.
So I don't know what we're talking about. It's all right. But all together, always, Debbie Harry does it, and it's flawless, seamless. She's really wonderful. And on Parallel Lines, it's probably the most. I don't want to. I'm going to use the word cohesive because I can't think of another word. But I don't mean. Word. Did you?
Yeah.
All right. Let me think of another one.
No, you can use it. I gave it there to you. I left it out so you could use it.
It's probably the most adhesive of their albums. And
it's sticky.
Doesn't deviate a ton, even though Heart of Glass to me is probably the biggest.
The one that like sticks out.
Change. It really does have a real rock and roll feel throughout, and a lot of girl meets boy romantic type songs, and in a way that Debbie Harry does so very well. She
so
really
earnest.
Does. Yes.
Like just totally earnest and genuine. I don't know. It's just that's at least the way it comes across.
I love the Ernest films. Ernest Goes to Camp is one of my favorites. Rice Erroneous. Picture This as an extraordinary song. I love the lyrics. We talk about this. It's not that female singers, lyricists, that there aren't a ton that write love songs about men. Joni Mitchell, Debbie Harry. We went through a couple of the obvious ones.
Those are the obvious ones.
I guess Joni Mitchell is definitely the obvious one.
Right.
It's not that there are none. I'm not saying that, but it's not as common. And the way Debbie Harry does it,
there's also like an innocence.
There is.
It just seems like sweetness, like it's youthful, like a youthful energy, and it's just like very
of Peyton
sweet.
Place.
So the elephant in the room is Britpop.
Oh, you're gonna go there?
Well, I think so. Fade Away and Radiate, I think, is a really cool song, and in my mind, there's a direct link from that song to Blur's self-titled album in 1997.
Well, we know that Damon is a Blondie fan. He hasn't really said so, but he likes to dress up.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen that picture.
Yeah, we know.
And,
can't fool all of us.
Yeah, Blur has a lot in common with Blondie. It's actually, at times, it just kind of makes me giggle.
It makes me giggle, too.
Because
we have a chuckle when we listen to this, thinking about Blur.
Because, again, you were a huge Blur fan in the 90s. I like Blur a lot. I'm a fan as well, of course. And it's funny to hear, it's not something that was talked about. It's not something that, a lot of people mentioned. Hush. And he really didn't talk about it either. But, yeah, Blondie was, it looms large in his legend. Mm-hmm. This album was #1 in England. And, its influence must have been, it had a big influence.
Oh, yeah.
It's just such a fascinating melange of styles and almost like contradictions, things just so we're talking about Fade Away and Radiate.
That song is like atmospheric and like moody,
but her vocals have an older style.
But then also the end of the song also goes into like a calypso kind of beat. It's very, very interesting. And then Pretty Baby is like another
that
simple
or Heart of Glass,
throwback.
which is unabashedly a disco song.
Yeah, it is.
Not like they're the only ones. Roger Waters,
Beach Boys.
Don't bring them into this. They didn't mean to do that. That's not their fault.
The Wall is probably the greatest disco album.
They even include on this, a Buddy Holly cover, which which is great, and it's a great version of it.
It is. It's really fun.
To sort of, Debbie Harry, her style, she does remind me most of Joey Ramone, even though the Ramones and Blondie are
they're synonymous.
Quite different. They do share some approach, and of course, these people all grew up listening to rock and roll, actual rock and roll in the 50s and early 60s, and
girl groups.
For this album especially, that is what you hear like as the basis for really everything.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just kind of blended in. I love Will Anything Happen? I don't know who that's about, but
Chris Stein.
It should be. I love her delivery on this. Just don't forget that I said it. I love that line.
I love that too.
I love that line.
And they're like, I know what I said and I mean it.
You find, and I know we're talking about Debbie Harry, and it's not because the whole band, the whole thing is just perfect like rock and roll. They're a great ensemble. You know, nothing really takes over. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got great guitar. You know, you've got a really great drummer. Definitely Keith Moonish, but not a little bit more controlled than that. And you know, the synths are great. They really are. They fit in. Everything fits in perfectly. And from the last album, I don't know that I say like this shows that they've grown. I just feel like this album is a real concerted kind of effort where every song does have much the same sound, and even when it varies its style, it still all somehow seems to fit perfectly, one to the next.
Yeah, as a whole, you know,
Pretty Baby is probably the best example of that, because that is a very interesting kind of old-fashioned feeling ballad that fits in perfectly next to everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, as a whole, I was going to say, you know, just the album itself really does, as it just comes together, and, you know, there's like no concept or real theming, but it's just a really solid, well thought out, well sequenced, obviously well written, perfectly performed album. We'll do more Blondie records soon, but there you go. Thank you so much for watching our review of Parallel Lines. Make sure to leave a comment, like this video, subscribe to States and Kingdoms, and we will see you next time.